Thank you. How are y'all? Sleepy? Hadn't even started yet.
We're just practicing.
Oh, just preparing, huh? Wow. It's good to see all of you tonight. I know some of you probably are wondering, Terry and others, why are we continuing on the particular theme we are? Lord's willing, tonight we will wrap this portion of Genesis chapter 1 and 2 up, and we'll move on into the text, as you were saying. But there is a subject, part of this subject, a related subject, that I just feel has to be not just heard, I know you've heard about it, but to try to cement some ideas in your head to drive this point home. We've been talking about the origin of mankind. Where do we come from? How did we get here? Do we have a purpose? Worldviews, in other words. And we've noticed that there's, a very different way of seeing the world, depending on if you look at the world as having been created by God, or if you believe we are just biological freaks of nature, and over a series of millions and billions of years, we have come to the point where we're here having a conversation about how we got here. There are a lot of people that say they believe that and probably want to believe that and probably have to some extent convinced themselves they believe that. I have a difficult time believing that they honestly embrace such insanity. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even make common sense. I mean, if something explodes, what generally is the result of an explosion? Would you say something is wonderful created from it, or would you say there's chaos as a result of an explosion? Explosions generally don't, unless you're putting ether inside a tire to get it back on a rim, and if you can do that right, or then it may blow your hair off. Depending on if you do it right or not. But explosions, if they're controlled, I suppose, could be good. But when you hear about someone saying the Big Bang created the universe, it just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't add up. Just common sense tells you there's a problem with that. But as I pointed out in the class, I think there's a desire, a determination to adopt even such a ridiculous worldview, and I'm trying to be charitable here, but it's a fairy tale at best, but we're going to adopt it as our worldview because we choose to believe that rather than acknowledging our responsibility before God. I don't want to do that. I don't want to live my life in such a way that God will govern it, that He will tell me how to live or what to do or how to think. I don't want that. So I'm going to choose to believe in madness. And that's where we are. Now, associated with this worldview is a question about dinosaurs. I raised this last week. And I want to take a few moments tonight to kind of explore why I believe this is extremely important for us to maybe ferret out some latent ideas you may have adopted yourself. You may have even allowed, without even realizing it, the world to influence your thinking relative to this question. And I first of all want to remind you that dinosaurs, as we mentioned last week, are, as I'm describing them, the poster child of evolution. And when I say poster child, I mean when you look at a dinosaur like a T-Rex, almost instinctively, you see, at least I do in my mind, the word evolution just pops in my head. Somewhere it's floating around this dinosaur, maybe popping up in the reflection in the water or something. But there's this dinosaur and evolution thing that go together. Why is that? And I think the reason for that is that those who have adopted this worldview that is devoid of God have done a fantastic job convincing us that these creatures, these weird, mysterious, large, menacing-looking creatures, lived millions of years before man ever appeared on planet Earth. And we've been told that in so many different ways, at so many different levels, that at some point we hear someone say, and we'll see in a moment, Sarah Palin, who believes that human beings and dinosaurs lived together I believe human beings, dinosaurs, lived together. I believe Moses was inspired of God. I believe God told us the truth. And so that's why I believe that humans and dinosaurs lived together. But again, some of my brethren seem to be almost afraid to discuss this. They don't want to talk about it because it kind of reminds me of denominational preachers who come across Mark 16:16. They just kind of read past it, or we just ignore it. We pretend it's not there. And the same thing with dinosaurs in the Lord's church. We just don't want to talk about it because we don't know what to do with it. Because we just can't imagine, because we've seen the depictions, and if I shut up, we'll get to the lesson here tonight. But again, I think it's important to understand why I'm doing this. I want you to be able to maybe identify some thoughts that may have been planted in your head without you even realizing. So just stick with me on this. I mentioned again last week, can you name the dinosaurs? And the reason I'm asking that, not because at this stage in life we should be fascinated with them like my 5-year-old grandson is, but if I'm going to talk to my 5-year-old grandson and I'm going to try to help him to understand that God made dinosaurs and he made people, and he made them both on the same day, by the way. If I'm going to talk to him about that, I need to know something about those creatures that he's fascinated with. I guarantee you he could list and name these dinosaurs. I don't know that I could. I mean, T-Rex, Stegosaurus, Velociraptor, whatever you call those things, Brontosaurus. I think they changed the name for Brontosaurus to something else. I don't know, but I'm not that familiar with the names. Perhaps we should be, because we need to be able to communicate effectively with our children and our grandchildren, because this is the vehicle that evolutionists use to promote their godless worldview. It's no more complicated than that. Now, I'm asking the question, did they exist? And I'm saying this because, believe it or not, sometimes brethren have been known to say things like, I don't believe dinosaurs ever actually existed. I think these big bones we find in the ground were probably put there to test our faith or something. I'm sorry, I can't go there at all, not in the least. But again, why are we afraid of this subject? Why would we even entertain such a silly notion that God would put these here to test our faith? It's because somewhere along the line, someone got to us. And I want to say this in the very beginning. I don't understand what the fear is. I don't understand why there's any trepidation at all about talking about human beings and dinosaurs living on this planet together. I don't see any issue with it at all. But again, we're going to talk about why we do that. Now, as we go about this, we're going to look at historical evidence. When I say historical, I mean there are a lot of documents in history that talk about these large creatures. They're not called dinosaurs, but they are large creatures. They're described this way. Often the term dragon is used to talk about these creatures. But there's a lot of historical evidence. There, of course, is physical evidence. There are graveyards of these bones that appear to be piled one on top of the other, as though some cataclysmic event like a universal flood or something would have piled them all together and killed them all at one time. I'm just saying that's something to consider, but there's evidence. It's there. We can't deny the evidence. And yes, there is biblical evidence for dinosaurs. Again, we're going to say, but wait a minute, dinosaurs aren't mentioned in the Bible. Just hold that thought. What happened to the dinosaur? Where are they? Well, I want to answer it this way. A lot of these weird, bizarre, menacing-looking creatures indeed are no longer with us. They are extinct. So is the dodo bird. So are people like myself. We're going extinct. There are not many of us left either. And it won't be long until we're totally eradicated and we're just completely resigned to nothingness. But, I mean, things come and they go. They wane and but in the case of animals and certain creatures, they may be extinct. But to say that dinosaurs no longer exist, have you ever been to the Okefenokee Swamp? And have you ever experienced a 12, 14-foot alligator coming up to your boat if you're in a John boat? It's a little bit frightening, but you say, well, that's just an alligator. What? Oh, yeah, it's just an alligator. But I don't want to tangle with an alligator. I don't know about you. I'm just not interested unless they have some kind of weird orange and blue helmet, and I'm like, okay, I don't mind that. They're not a threat at all. But if we're thinking about an actual creature, an alligator or crocodile, I want to mess with it. And they're dinosaurs, actually. They were around when even the evolutionists say that dinosaurs were here. They've been here, just like all the other creatures. And again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but what happened to them? Well, there are a lot of reasons why many of them are not here. But it's not just dinosaurs. A lot of mammals and amphibious creatures are not here either. So, again, that doesn't mean anything. By the way, all the windmills that these environmentalist wackos are putting up around, especially on the eastern seaboard, are killing out whales. Did you know that? There are herds of whales dying by the thousands, and they're actually thinking about revisiting global warming because they're killing whales. That's interesting. I had to say that side note. What about the historical evidence? We're going to look at that in a moment. But as you think about documents from China, you look at documents from Africa, even the Americas and the Mayas, Aztecs, other those advanced cultures that lived here, you don't read anything about dinosaurs. They're just not mentioned. Mesopotamia, Europe, they don't talk about dinosaurs. But again, as we pointed out last week, the term itself, the word, was coined in 1842. I'm not that old, but it wasn't that long ago. 1842 was just around the corner, historically speaking, and so just from that time till now, we've been using this term to refer to what? What is it? What does dinosaur mean? You said it in class. What does it mean? I'm glad we don't have terrible lizards anymore in the world. So, do I? Well, they are terrible, but there's some more terrible than that. We'll say that. You're getting ahead of me, but we're going to get to that too, and they're still alive. But anyway. Okay, let's just keep that in mind. Let's turn in your Bibles very quickly. I asked you to do this last week, but let's just read the text together. Now, I want to say this about your Bible. I don't know what Bible you're using. A lot of your study Bibles will offer suggestions, commentary, helps, however you want to describe it, in various and sundry places. And typically, when you read, like, for example, Job 40, verse 15, you probably have in your marginal notes likely a hippopotamus. And when you get to chapter 41 and you're reading about Leviathan, likely a crocodile. So I don't know, someone have one of those in your Bible? If you do, just raise your hand and interrupt me because I'd like to hear you what it had to say. But if you notice that in your little commentary section in your notes, yes, Lester? Yeah, well, that's a fair assessment. It is an unknown. We don't know. But to say this is a hippopotamus kind of defies the description that we're about to encounter here. But again, the point in Job here, this section in Job, God is talking to Job, and Job, he's trying to explain to Job, here you are questioning me, and your friends are questioning me, and you all are trying to figure out what's going on. And he starts this whole section back in chapter 38, I believe, or 39. Where were you when I laid the foundations of the earth? Describe that to me. And so now he's going to talk about these large creatures that are intimidating, they're imposing, and you're very much intimidated by them. And if you're intimidated by them, you certainly ought to be intimidated by me and stop questioning me. That's the gist of this exchange in this section. But verse 15, he said, "Look now at the behemoth which I made along with you. He eats grass like an ox. See now his strength is in his hips, and his power is in his stomach muscles. He moves his tail like a cedar." By the way, what does a hippopotamus tail look like? They're cute, aren't they? Hippopotamus is a mean creature. Some of the most deadly creatures in all the African continent. But they're kind of cute from a distance. Their mouths are ugly, but they have this funny little tail. But again, he's moving his tail like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are tightly knit. His bones are like beams of bronze. His ribs like bars of iron. Listen to this. He is the first of the ways of God. Only he who made him can bring near his sword. Surely the mountains yield food for him. And all the beasts of the field play there. He lies under the lotus trees and a covert of reeds and marsh. The lotus trees cover him with their shade. The willows by the brook surround him. Indeed, the river may rage, yet he is not disturbed. He is confident. Though the Jordan gushes into his mouth. He's envisioning an animal with a river running into its mouth. Though he takes it in his eyes, one pierces his nose with a snare. Okay, chapter 41. Can you draw out Leviathan with a hook? Snare his tongue with a line which you lower? Can you put a reed through his nose or pierce his jaw with a hook? Will he make many supplications to you? Will he speak softly to you? Will he make a covenant with you? Will you take him as a servant forever? Will you play with him as with a bird? Or will you leash him for your maidens? Will your companions make a banquet of him? Will they apportion him among the merchants? Can you fill his skin with harpoons or his head with fishing spears? Lay your hand on him. Remember the battle. Never do it again. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? He was preceded me that I should pay him. Everything under heaven is mine. I will not conceal his limbs, his mighty power, or his graceful proportions. Who can remove his outer coat? Who can approach him with a double bridle? Who can open the doors of his face with his terrible teeth all around? His rows of scales or his pride shut up tightly as with a seal. One is so near another that no air can come between them. They are joined one to another. They stick together, cannot be parted. His sneezings flash forth light, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lights. Sparks of fire shoot out. Smoke goes out of his nostrils as from a boiling pot and burning rushes. His breath kindles coals, and a flame goes out of his mouth. Strength dwells in his neck, and sorrow dances before him. The folds of his flesh are joined together. They are firm on him and cannot be moved. His heart is as hard as stone, even as hard as the lower millstone. When he raises himself up, the mighty are afraid. Because of his crashing, they are beside themselves. Though the sword reaches him, it cannot avail, nor does spear, dart, or javelin. He regards iron as straw and bronze as rotten wood. The arrow cannot make him flee. Slingstone become like stubble to him. Darts are regarded as straw. He laughs at the threat of javelins. His undersides are like sharp potsherds. He spreads pointed marks in the mire. He makes the deep boil like a pot. He makes the sea like a pot of ointment. He leaves a shining wake behind him. One would think the deep had white hair. On earth there's nothing like him, which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He is king over all the children of pride. Okay, I don't know if any of you have that in your Bibles. I'm glad if you don't. It's pretty common to find commentary like that to make those kinds of suggestions. But, Lester, you said that your marginal note said it's an unknown creature. I think that's a fair assessment. But what does this unknown creature sound like? Does this sound like a hippopotamus to you? Well, the Leviathan certainly does. This behemoth, he lives in a marshy thing. He drinks the river. He eats the mountains. He got an appetite, obviously. But he's a large creature. He's intimidating. In fact, God said this. It's amazing. If I were to ask you, anybody in the class, what is the king of the jungle? Okay. When you ask God that question, this is how God answers that. He is the first of the works of God. He's the king of the beasts. That's what he's saying. He's top of the line. And so it's not the lion, it's this, whatever this creature was. Now, I might say brontosaurus. It could be some other species. I don't know. Again, it's not really spelled out for us. The term dinosaur certainly is not used, but the description is there. And I hadn't even mentioned the Psalms that talk about dragons, but there are a number of those. Of course, there's the Leviathan that does sound like your typical Middle Age, Dark Age, knight in shining armor fighting this dragon creature that comes up out of the swamp. I don't know, but I know this is what God, would say about him. Again, I'm asking the question, why is it so hard to believe that this was some sort of dinosaur? God said this about him: on earth, there's nothing like him, which is made without fear. He beholds every high thing. He's king of the children of pride, verse 33. Is it possible that God's just talking about some dinosaur? Some unnamed dinosaur? If they had a name, Job and his people, for this particular dinosaur, they probably didn't call it a dinosaur. They probably didn't call it what we would call it if we were talking about dinosaurs that fit this physical characteristic. I mean, they had their own name for it, just like we have our name for it. The fact that those names are not used doesn't mean it wasn't a dinosaur. In fact, this is interesting. Indeed, any hope of overcoming him is false. Shall one not be overwhelmed at the sight of him? No one is so fierce that he would dare stir him up. Who then is able to stand against me? Now again, if your marginal note said, this is probably an alligator, I want you to think about the fact there are a lot of weird people in the world. Some of them actually enjoy tackling alligators and crocodiles. I don't understand that. Do you? I can't relate to this. This is like out there, weird stuff. But there's some people who are fascinated with snakes. I don't understand that either.
Don't you catch sharks?
Now, huh?
Don't you catch sharks?
Did he catch sharks? Yes, I catch sharks.
I mean,
That's wonderful.
it's not so far.
You can actually eat shark too, by the way. The tail?
Yeah, well, I've had
But it tastes like chicken. Do I?
No, it's good.
It does?
Yeah,
I've had it too.
it don't taste like chicken. This is good meat.
But my point is, God's saying of this creature, if your Bible commentator said probably an alligator, I don't think so, because God wouldn't use something that weird people like to tackle and play with to make his point. He just wouldn't do that. That wouldn't make sense. Why would God use a creature like this to do what he's doing in this dialogue? Again, you say, why are we doing this? This is an adult Bible class. I understand that. We need to understand what our children are up against. We need to know what they're being taught every day. Even I may not be teaching, you may not be teaching them, but they're getting taught this stuff. It may not even be at school. It may be on a cartoon, or it could be some movie they're watching, or it could be the kids in the neighborhood. It could be a magazine they have. It could be on the internet. It's anywhere you turn. This is the idea that these marvelous, menacing creatures lived millions and millions of years ago, long before man. By the way, they ruled the earth. They ruled the earth, and then man came along. Now we're ruling the earth. So we're sharing that rulership with. There's so much that's wrong with that popular view. It's a popular view. Even people that go to church, that read their Bible, that believe in heaven and hell, I mean, they believe all this stuff. And yet in the back of their mind, they never stop to think, wait a minute, what about dinosaurs? Where do they fit in this question? And so our children need to know that we're able to communicate with them. We're able to explain to them. We need to know the facts, because our children are being destroyed from within. But I bring them to church. I don't care. You can bring them to church all you want to. Satan is constantly working to undermine everything you're doing. And if you're not aware of that, hope and pray something in this class will open your eyes. Then you will be aware, and every day you can take the opportunity not just to talk about the Bible as Moses instructed Israel to do, as you should do, lying down, rising up, walking, going around your business, but you should talk about the things that they are being assaulted with and what the Bible had to say in response to those things. So this is why I believe it's important. I want you to hear what happened to this Tennessee father. He saw this biology textbook. This is Tennessee. I mean, it's still the Bible Belt. I mean, I know they're kind of Yankees up there, but it's still, Tennessee is in the Bible Belt. Yeah, there's anything above Chattanooga. I mean, you know that. That's the line. You don't think? Oh, you're from Maryland. Actually, it runs right through Maryland, doesn't it? Okay, you know where it is. Okay, I couldn't pull that one over. You could, but they put sugar in our grits in Tennessee. I'm sorry, that's out. But this father said that this curriculum is biased against Christians. You say, what's biased about it? Look at this quote in a biology textbook. The biblical myth. Now, wait a minute. I thought, if anything, we're supposed to be presenting both sides so that people could hear both sides and judge for themselves. No, even when Christianity, even when creation is mentioned, notice how it is presented. The biblical myth, the universe was created by the Judeo-Christian God in 7 days.
Except for 6 days, so that's wrong too.
Yeah, it is. That's right. Well, anyway. So again, I keep mentioning humans and dinosaurs living together. Why is that significant? Why does that matter? One of the biggest things we talked about so far in our class in Genesis chapters 1 and 2 is the question of time, because evolutionists hide behind what? lies, yeah, but time. They hide behind time. And they even give time credit to perform miracles. I mean, time is God to the evolution. So we have to have this mysterious world of, millions and millions of years ago before man even appeared here with these wonderful creatures roaming about. But let's think about man and dinosaurs living together. Notice what Louis Jacobs said on the co-occurrence of man and dinosaurs. He said, such an association would dispel an earth with vast antiquity. The entire history of creation, including the day of rest, could be accommodated in the 7 biblical days of the Genesis myth. Evolution would be vanquished. I'm sharing this quote with you so you will understand that these people that are promoting this know exactly what they are doing. They are purposefully trying to undermine your faith in the biblical text. They don't want you to believe the Bible. They want you to believe in evolution. And so notice what they're doing. They're scurrying about. We can't let you see the evidence for humans and dinosaurs. Can't let you do that, because the minute you do that, then you realize, wait a minute, everything you've been saying is a fairy tale. And it is. So they're afraid of it. Notice on a Nova TV special called God, Darwin, and the Dinosaurs, talking about dinosaur footprints side by side with humans, this is the quote, finding them would counter evidence that humans evolved long after the dinosaur became extinct, and back up the claim that all species, including man, were created at one time. We saw that in Job, didn't we? About the behemoth. I made him along with you. On the 6th day, what was made? Animals and man. And so God's telling Job, I made him the same time I made you. But this is what the Nova TV special is saying. We can't let that go. We can't let you think. Remember this really wonderful man, Richard Dawkins. He said alleged human bones in the Carboniferous coal deposits. They found bones of humans in coal deposits. He said if authenticated as human, these bones would blow the theory of evolution out of the water. They understand what's at stake. They know what they're doing. They are determined to destroy our worldview. I wonder, brethren, am I just blowing hot air here? I do typically, but I hope I'm doing more than that, because I hope we can create an army here of people that will be aware we need to fight back. It's time we took this to the level playing field. They know what they're doing. We need to know what we're doing. We need to know why we're doing it and what the purpose of it is. It is to instill faith in God, His Word, to remind our children there's a reason to be here, a purpose for your existence, and you have a destiny. We need to teach our children these things. Again, these evolutionists certainly know what they're doing. And so let's just ask the question, is there evidence that humans and dinosaurs live together? Now, those of you sitting on that side of the auditorium probably can't read all those words. I don't feel a bit sorry for you. There's plenty of space over here. But I will read this to accommodate you. And this is one of those passages I think we should all commit to memory. It's a powerful text. It's kind of what we just saw in Job 40 a while ago. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested the 7th day. Therefore, the Lord blessed the Sabbath. So, when were dinosaurs made? Well, we know day 6, but sometime in that 6 days, at least we can narrow it down here, that's when they were made. Because if it was made, when was it made? In 6 days. If it was made, that's when it was made. That's what the text says. But in the back of your mind thinking, yeah, but those dinosaur bones are made of your... Remember we talked about radiocarbon dating and those methods? How far back can radiocarbon dating go? 40,000 years is the upper limit? And we're talking about 160 million years ago, Jurassic Park. 160... How do we know that? Because we read the bone, we put it in the little microwave there, and it came out and told us that, we've got a 160 million-year-old bone, but you can only go back 40,000 years at best. Take our word for it. You see what I'm saying? They know what they're doing. We have to be aware of what they're doing, and we need to counter it. In Mark 10, notice what Jesus said about human beings. He said, from the beginning of the creation, God made them. That's Adam and Eve. God made them male and female. For this reason, a man shall leave his father. Again, I don't want to read the whole quote because I just want you to see Jesus nailing it down. Adam and Eve were around from what time? From the beginning. When is the beginning? We just read it, Genesis chapter 1, about 6 weeks ago. We read Genesis 1. I know you still remember it because you're wanting me to get to chapter 2. But we did read Genesis chapter 1, and we're still talking about it. But in Genesis chapter 1, notice, Adam and Eve were made. In Romans 1:20, Paul said, for since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, including the behemoth and the leviathan and the roach bug, all the things that were made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without. What excuse do we have to say there is no God? It's absurd. It's silly. In Luke 11:49, Jesus again talking about the prophets that were persecuted. He said that the blood of all the prophets, which was shed from the foundation of the world, may be required of this generation, from the blood of Abel. And we hadn't got to chapter 4 yet. We're getting there. But chapter 4, Adam and Eve had 2 sons, and their names were Cain and Abel. And Abel was killed by Cain. Why? Because his deeds were righteous, his brothers were not. And so he was the first martyr in that sense. To the blood of Zechariah who appeared between the altar and the temple. In other words, notice what Jesus is saying about human beings. How long have they been here? From the foundation of the world. Again, I'm going to ask the question again. Why is it so hard to believe that humans and dinosaurs lived together? Let's think about that. Here's something from this guy. I think you'll appreciate this, Smiley. It's called the Cajun Boy. I don't know anything about him, but clearly the Cajun Boy is taking pot shots at Sarah Palin. And this is he's trying to make fun of her. But notice what he says. The Washington Post, he didn't appreciate this, the Washington Post had once again given Alaskan warrior princess, a woman who believes dinosaurs and humans roam the earth together, editorial space to debunk a scientific theory she has an issue with. Now, here's something that bothers me about this. I know I'm sharing this with you because I want you to be aware that this is the tactic that's used. If you say humans and dinosaurs live together, you're just dumb. You're silly. You're a warrior princess. I mean, they'll find all kind of ways to describe you. They're trying to intimidate you, to shut you up. But notice what you see in the last part of this quote. What is this writer really upset about? That the Washington Post would have the nerve to give this crazy woman that thinks dinosaurs and people live together space to talk about her view on a scientific theory. They should be scolded, and that's what he's doing, scolding the Washington Post. Notice who is opposed to liberty, to the freedom of speech. Who is it? It's not Christians. It's not people that share our worldview. It's the evolutionists. It's the secularists. It's the left. They are opposed to freedom of speech. Why? Because it exposes their lunacy. And that's just being blunt about it, but they don't want to talk about it. They don't want to debate it because they look dumb. So we don't go there. We don't talk about it. So let's talk about the evidence. Now, you can't see this yet. Be patient. But this is a petroglyph in Natural Bridges National Monument. These are clearly old pictures that are drawn on the face of the rock. I'm showing this picture so I can zoom in a little bit and you can see it a little better. But you see in the top left corner the depiction of a man, and the lower right corner, what is that? A behemoth? I don't know. A behemoth or something, but where did we get this? I mean, this is old drawing, and it's in a national monument. It's preserved. You can go and see it today, but what does that mean? Where did they get this idea? Talk about historical evidence. There's a lot of discussion in history about dragons, including the book of Psalms, by the way. Let me go back to this quote here. Numerous cultures throughout the world possess ancient stories about dragons, not dinosaurs, but dragons, that closely resemble what we would call dinosaurs, which is to be expected if dinosaurs and humans really lived together. From ancient texts in Mesopotamia, China, Europe, creatures with scaly skin, slender necks, and long tails are described in all these cultures. In Far Eastern countries such as China, dragons often are described in ancient writings. Some of them are said to have been domesticated, even were used to pull the chariots of Chinese rulers. Also, many of the ancient Chinese people are said to have used dragon bone for special medicines and potions. Probably had the first virus from that too. While visiting the continent of Asia in the 1200s, Italian explorer Marco Polo said that he saw long reptiles called lindworms that easily ran as fast as a horse. In the British Isles, hundreds of dragon stories have come down to the present day. One account told of an animal with a crested head, teeth like a saw, and a long tail. 1449 in England, it was reported that two huge reptiles were seen fighting on the banks of the River Stour. I mean, you know, we've all been fascinated with those stories about the knight in shining armor fighting what? The dragon. I mean, where did these stories come from? Why are they around? What do they mean? Well, it's just fairy tale. Well, some of it's embellished, obviously, but not all of it. Consider this. The epic poem Beowulf describes a battle in Denmark between a man named Beowulf and a terrible monster called Grendel. Beowulf was a real person. He lived from AD 495 to 583. That's this side of the cross, by the way. He was king of a group of people known as the Getangas. Grendel was a bipedal creature that possessed large, powerful jaws, had small, weak forearms. Beowulf slew him, you may recall, by tearing off one of those arms. My question is, how did he get to the arm? But as Bill Cooper inquired, is there a predatory animal from the fossil record known to us who had two massive hind legs, two comparatively puny forelimbs? There is indeed. I doubt that the reader need to be guided by me as to which particular species of predatory dinosaur the details of his physical description best fit. Probably a T-Rex would be my guess, but this was a description of this guy in Denmark killing this creature. A lot of stories like this. Again, we hear it, we think, that's silly. There's no way that human beings could live on the same planet with such ferocious creatures. You know the thing about the Komodo dragon? They're meaner than alligators, by the way, and faster, and they eat a lot. In fact, I want to share with you some facts about this Komodo dragon. It's the world's largest lizard. They can grow to be 10 feet long, twice the length of an average man, can weigh as much as 275 pounds. Still, their short, stocky legs carry them 15 miles per hour. It's almost faster than the average dog. After stalking and killing deer, wild boar, other prey, they devour their dinner in a matter of minutes. Sound like Thanksgiving. Furthermore, these amazing creatures can consume up to now we know we're talking about Thanksgiving, up to 80% of their own weight. A 100-pound Komodo can eat 80 pounds of food in one meal. That's a lot of food. If that's not enough bad news about an animal with which we share this planet today, now, right now, millions of deadly bacteria grow inside its mouth and make any bite poisonous, potentially fatal. Yet despite its size, sharp teeth, speed, power, poison, digestive habits, neither this animal nor any other large reptile, the anaconda, has kept man from flourishing on the earth. Isn't that amazing? You know, we talk, again, we say, well, dinosaurs lived a long time. They're still around. We just think of them as living millions of years. Why? Because somebody told you to think that way. They want you to think that way. You need to be aware of what's happening when you hear these things. Now, have you ever encountered an elephant charging you? Elephants are big creatures. Now you say, but they're not reptiles. No, they're not. But, you know, when you talk about dinosaurs, under that umbrella are a lot of mammals as well. They weren't all reptiles. And so there are a lot of mammals in this evolutionary chart that's presented to our children. This is a mammal. It's an interesting mammal with somewhat amusing features like long noses, big ears. These awesome animals can reach weights of up to 11 tons. That's 22,000 pounds. One elephant could easily kill a man just by stepping on him with one foot or by striking him with his powerful trunk. You say, that's cute. He could slap you to death. Yet for thousands of years, humans have been known to live with, even tame these massive beasts. Over 2,200 years ago, the Empire of Carthage, led by infamous General Hannibal, used tame African elephants to cross the Swiss Alps and battle the Romans. You know, it'd be interesting if we could go back in history and see where these animals, these large animals, were tamed by mankind. But actually, you don't have to go back that far in history. In fact, you could just Go to downtown Atlanta. They had a bunch of elephants there not long ago, and they were parading around, eating off dinner tables with their trunks. It was kind of cute. But you think about this large creature can stomp you to death, and what is this man doing? It's a circus act. Yes, ma'am?
Just to point out too, in Genesis 1, verse 30, it says, "And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food," and it was so. So in the beginning, at one point,
They were eating herbs.
they were, everybody, everything that lived on the earth was an herbivore.
I hate cats. Have you ever been attacked by a lion?
No.
Tiger? Well, they're not nice. In fact, they're likened to what individual in the Bible? Peter likened our adversary to what? The devil, as a roaring lion. I don't want to mess with a lion. But you think about what a lion can do, how a lion can tear you to pieces, but we can tame lions and get them to do what we want them to do, and they can perform in circuses. God said, let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. Let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that's dinosaurs. So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female, he created them. Then God blessed them, and God said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth, subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, over every living thing that moves on the earth. What's that? God made us, put us, what? We're at the top of the food chain. You know, I get tired of hearing people say, well, I'm not at the top of the food chain. Those Alaska people, they're weird people. Cool people. I like living in Alaska, but at the same time, they're always saying, I'm not at the top of the food chain. Yes, you are. You have a gun. I'm sorry, but these other creatures out here, they don't stand a chance with that high-powered rifle you got. You can shoot them from a mile away. They wouldn't even see you coming. What do you mean you're not at the top of the food chain? It's crazy. But anyway, notice what James said. Every kind of beast, bird, reptile, creature of the sea is tamed, has been tamed. Reptiles? We tame reptiles? Apparently. You know, Hollywood wants us to believe that these creatures were long ago, and there's no way we could share this planet with them. Actually, there are a lot of reasons why we believe we could share the planet with these creatures. We have, what is that word? Dominion over what? The creeping things, the birds, everything. All things. And God put us in charge. And so are we supposed to be afraid of them? You know, here's the point, and this is what I'm challenging you. I'm going to give you the last 4 minutes of class. But this is what I want us to confront tonight, and this is the question. Do we trust the testimony of Scripture? And everything I've been saying about dinosaurs, it's interesting. We could talk a long time. I don't mean to bore you with it, but I feel it's my duty to make you aware of how this particular subject is used to captivate the imagination of your children, and maybe yourself. I think dinosaurs are neat. I like the way Hollywood depicts them. They're kind of cool pictures. I mean, how do these dinosaurs actually behave? I don't know. Bones can't tell you that. I mean, we don't know how they behaved. But I mean, maybe they were menacing like this. I don't know. Maybe they were just docile. I don't know. I mean, like you say, originally they were herb eaters, right? They ate plants. If there was a lot of oxygen in the air and there was a canopy of water around the earth and people were living to be 1,000 years old, you probably had really big plants too. Have you thought about that? The soil would have been much more compatible with roots going down deep and big plants. And what would be required to take care of those large leaves and plants? Big animals. You had a comment, Mama? That's what we're talking about, leaves?
I know, you just said that.
Or people? I don't know.
I wondered if they ate humans.
May have. Animals have been known to eat people, or at least kill people. And of course, in Genesis 9, Noah was told by God that beasts that kill a man should be killed by man, that men that kill men should be killed by men. So animals should be held responsible for killing people. So if an animal comes in your yard, even if it's your neighbor's favorite cat, and kills your child, kill that cat. Put that cat to death. You got it? You heard that? Okay, they'll probably come and arrest me, but that's true. I just want you to understand that The stuff we hear, the pictures that are painted, we have to weigh them against what? Everything had to be weighed against what? The Scripture. Is God lying to us? Is he misleading us? Did God make everything in 6 days? It's sad because a lot of my brethren, some of them very intellectual, very conservative, otherwise brethren, sometimes will turn to Genesis 1, and because they've been influenced, because they haven't thought these things through, maybe they're so busy writing commentaries on every book of the Bible, they didn't have time to think about this, but they have concluded, my brethren, that there are billions of years nestled between each day of creation. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. There was evening and there was morning. That's not deceptive language. God's not deceiving us. He's telling us what happened. There was evening and there was morning the first day. Evening and morning the second day. Evening and morning the third day. And the evening and morning of the sixth day, all of these creatures we've been talking about and us were made. But we were made different. We were made how? In the image of God. And so in God's image we have been created. And so we have dominion over these creatures. Now I don't know about Leviathan because even God said to Job, you ain't going to mess with him. If you do, you won't do it again. And that's what he said. You do it, you won't do it again. So we have to be careful. Yes?
I was just going to say, I think the point Tessa was trying to make was something we studied in GSOP.
Yeah, I know what you're making. She was getting ahead of my class. I couldn't finish my class. But it is a good point.
I'm just saying they all, it says everything that has the breath of life, I have given green plants.
Yes.
Which means the dinosaurs wouldn't have come out and started eating people because they
No.
ate plants.
Yeah.
They didn't really eat meat until after the flood. So,
Well, people didn't eat meat before the flood either.
that's what I'm saying. So it would have been easier to have dominion over something if it's not trying to eat you.
I think the relationship between animals and man was completely different before the flood.
They talked to snakes.
That's what they were talking, yeah.
We talked to snakes and didn't even think anything about it. Yes.
If God could create any of it at all, which we believe he did, then he could do it in a day.
Is anything too hard for the Lord? Isn't that what he asked? And so, again, it comes back to that question. Do we believe God or not? Do we take him at his word or not? Or do we say, well, I believe God, I believe the Bible kind of, but I can't. These guys got a good point. They don't have a good point. They got a lot of propaganda. They got a lot of money. They got a lot of slick imagery. But they don't have the truth. The Word of God has the truth. And that's where we need to put our stand. So thank you for enduring this. So next week we're going to get into the Genesis text and spend about 6 weeks in chapter 2.
Very good. Long awaited.
You have been waiting, haven't you?
I said I have been long awaited.
Okay. Thank y'all.
It's better than the very first time.
Did anything I say make any sense to you about why I'm doing this? This is why we need to do it? I mean, we just need to do it periodically because this stuff is constantly thrown at us. And I like the Jurassic Park series. I think it's a cool movie series. I mean, kind of silly, but, it's interesting. I like the imagery. Oh, y'all missed it. This is a really cool class up here. Yeah. Huh? Dinosaurs go roar?
Well, they can go home.
Is that a BBS song? Yes, sir. Huh? Yes, sir. I did, yeah. I'm going to dig it. Yes, I know.
We're slowly but surely getting God out of it.
I'm going extinct. I'm not going to, that's to replace me before I replace the designation. I don't want to get rid of 2,000 years of history to accommodate these people. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Thank y'all. And by the way, I was talking fast tonight, and I apologize for that. But I don't want Terry to get mad at me because I want to finish this. So we're done. Now we can move on to other things in Genesis. So you won't get mad at me? Pray for me? Thank you. I need it.
Yeah, yes, you do. So do I.
Thanks. I love you too. What?
Where's this coming? 5
Are all the classes in here? You have a song? 848 in your songbooks, please. I spoke with Vicki this morning, and we have decided on the 15th, which is Sunday week, for the memorial service for David. Unfortunately, David, I'm sure you got in the voice call, what do you call that? Robocall? Phone blast, thank you. We did send that out. But anyway, he passed away this past Lord's Day. But his memorial service will be at the building. We'll have our usual morning worship service on the 15th, and then we'll have a meal. And I'm just struggling with this because typically whenever we have a funeral service at the building, traditionally, we have a meal for the family. But since we're all going to be here that Sunday, it would just be easy and natural for us to have a meal together for the family. So I'm kind of reluctant to call it simply a fellowship meal. It will be that, of course, but we want to think of it more in terms of catering to and recognizing this family and their loss. But we'll be having a meal together and urging all of us to stay. And then at 1:30, we'll come back in here and have the memorial service. There's a box in the foyer. It looked like there are a number of names in it. I didn't delve into it, but it's pretty full. But thank you for that, by the way. The elders are asking for suggestions for new elders to add to our present leadership. This announcement was made this past Sunday. If you have a suggestion of someone who was scripturally qualified to serve, please submit the name or names in writing, and please sign it if you would, so we can know, who's offering these suggestions, and put it in the box in the foyer. We have till the 15th to do that. Is that Sunday week also? Okay, so that'll be on the 15th. Digging Deep Ladies Bible Study. All the ladies are urged to attend this coming Monday at 6 o'clock. Please bring finger food to share. See Lydia if you have any questions. Pantry unloading will be next week. Somebody please pray for me so that I can find a way to rent the U-Haul equipment. It's a long story, but I need a lot of prayers. I need prayers for patience. We're just trying to rent a truck and go pick up the food. We would like to have you here at 11 o'clock or roughly 11:30 to help unload on Tuesday of next week. Georgia School of Preaching classes began Tuesday the 10th. There are registration forms on the table in the foyer with class information. If you plan on attending, please take one of those forms and fill it out and give that to Tom. Stan McGuire is going to be having foot surgery. He'll have a better understanding after next Monday, we believe. That'll be this coming Monday, right? Of course, remember Vicki in your prayers. This is really a tough time for her. David Williams, Kathy Bednar's grandfather, I believe, isn't it? It's in the hospital. Is it grandfather or father? I don't remember. I think that's her grandfather. But anyway, he's in hospital with pneumonia. Are you having a heart monitor put in?
Yeah, January 10th, I get an ultrasound done on my heart, and I will be put on a heart monitor,
So they're going to go searching and,
searching to see
okay, if you have
what
one.
kind of heart I got.
Okay. We'll be praying on the 10th. That's Tuesday, so that's,
And
okay.
I hope to make Georgia School of Preaching that time.
All right, wonderful. I appreciate you, brother, very much. Anything else we need to mention before we dismiss? 800, you had 48, 848? It was a grandfather. Okay, thank you. Yes. Oh, thank you. Yes. Lithia Springs is hosting Alan Webster this Saturday. Is that correct? Saturday at 2 o'clock. What is he doing? Oh, Quick Start Weekend. Okay. Sounds interesting. So that'd be Saturday, 2 o'clock at the Lithia Springs. 2 to 4. Okay. Well, thank you. And did we get anything in the mail? I haven't seen anything. I haven't heard anything about it. Anyway, all right. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll be singing number 848 in our songbooks as a song of invitation and encouragement. One of the things I've been, railing about for the last several weeks in our Genesis class is the fact that so many seemingly are wanting not to believe in God. And the reason for this, they're suppressing the truth. because they don't want to answer to him. They want to live the life they want to live, do the things they want to do. You kind of think, well, I kind of get that, although it's sad because they're just denying reality, and they're going to pay the price one day. But you know what's sad to me, though, is when people are denying his existence for that reason, they're also cutting themselves off from the very source of life itself. In him we live and move and have our being. And here we are saying, I want to shut myself off from that. I don't want anything to do with him. He's not only our life, he is the absolute definition of love. What do we need more than food itself? Love, acceptance. He is the very definition. God is love. Why would we shun the one who loves us, who cares for us, who provides our very lives, who offers us an eternal destiny in glory, having paid the price for that glory by the gift of himself? How could we in our right mind not run and embrace him and his gospel? I pray if there's anyone here tonight that has yet to name the name of Christ, that you will do that. It's the new year still, the first week of this new year. You may get started on the right foot, certainly will tonight, if you obey the gospel, if you return to your first love. If we can help you in any way, please make that need known right now while together we stand and as we sing.
Wonderful story of love.